Season's greetings, everyone. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas with the gang here at Where Nobody Knows Your Name. Some of you may not have seen our faces before. That's John. That's Lou. She does artwork for us.
Hello.
A wonderful artist in her own right. James, I am speaking. That's Troy. And that's Barry.
Hello.
We've got a festive treat for you today. We hope this will be more wholesome than our horror special, but we don't know with this mischievous lad on the end.
Don't look at me. I was finding it.
It would be a fun time all around. So here it is. Merry Christmas. Everybody's having fun. We're going to be reading through A Christmas Carol. Exciting, no?
Yes, boy.
Yes. We've got scripts and everything.
Single-sided print, because
you don't like nature.
Because I don't care about trees, apparently.
Yeah. There is unrest in the forest, one. Anyway.
There will be by the end of this.
Shall we begin, everyone?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Marley was dead, to begin with. There was no doubt whatsoever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it, and Scrooge's name was considered good for any piece of business he chose to put his hand to. Marley was as dead as a doornail. Oh, that surprised me, but it was good.
By the way, there's sound effects.
Michael Winslow over there. Scrooge knew he was dead? Of course he did. How could it be otherwise? Scrooge and he had been partners for I don't know how many years. Scrooge was his sole executor, his sole administrator, his sole friend, and the only man who mourned him, if Scrooge can be said to have mourned at all. And the mention of Marley's funeral brings me back to the point I started from. There is no doubt that Marley was dead. This must be distinctly understood, or nothing wonderful can come of the story I am going to relate.
Proper dead. Like, dead.
Dead as a doornail, apparently. Scrooge never painted out old Marley's name. There it stood years afterward above the warehouse door, Scrooge and Marley. The firm was known as Scrooge and Marley. Sometimes people new to the business called Scrooge, and sometimes Marley, but he answered to both names. It was all the same to him. It was bitterly cold, and the fog was thick as pea soup on Christmas Eve of 1843. When Scrooge said, that's the sound of fog.
What fog have you seen?
The Scotch mist.
Is that Patmos? No?
It's something. On that Christmas Eve of 1843, when Scrooge sat busy in his counting house, with his clerk nearby trying to warm himself at a candle. But since he didn't have much of an imagination, he failed. The voice of Scrooge's nephew came upon him so quickly that this was the first intimation he had of his approach.
A Merry Christmas, Uncle!
What?
A Merry Christmas, Uncle. God save you.
Ah, humbug.
Christmas, a humbug? Uncle, surely you don't mean that.
Of course I mean it. What reason have you to be merry, you little oink? You're poor enough.
Come, Uncle, what reason have you to dismay? You're rich enough, huh?
Bah! Away with Christmas. What Christmas is to you but a time for paying bills without money, a time for finding yourself a year older and not an hour richer. If I could work my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding.
You got a sound effect for that? Put the old boy back.
And buried with a stake of holly through his heart, he should.
Uncle.
Nephew, keep Christmas in your own way and let me keep it in mine.
Keep it? But you don't keep it.
Let me leave it alone then. A lot of good it has done you.
Well, there are many things for which I have benefited, even if I didn't show a profit. I dare say Christmas among the rest. Though it has never put a scrap of silver or gold in my pocket, I believe it has done me good, and will do me good. And I say, God bless it.
Way!
Cratchit burstings. Right, cool. Boom! Applause. I was waiting for some sound effects.
Another sound out of you and I will keep your Christmas by losing your position.
I'm just going to slink back to work.
Don't be angry, Uncle. Come and dine with us tomorrow.
I'll see myself in hell first.
I want nothing from you. I ask nothing of you. Why can't we be friends?
Bugger off.
I'm sorry to find you so resolute. We've never had a quarrel, you and I, but I'll keep my Christmas humour to the last. So a Merry Christmas, Uncle.
Bugger off.
And a Happy New Year.
Bugger off.
And a Merry Christmas to you, Bob Scratcher.
Thank you, sir. A Merry Christmas to you.
There's another fellow, my clerk, with 15 shillings a week and a wife and family talking about a Merry Christmas. I'll retire to Bedlam.
This lunatic, in letting Scrooge's nephew out, had let another person in, a portly gentleman, pleasant to behold, and now stood with his hat off in Scrooge's office. He had books and papers in his hands and bowed to the sole owner of the establishment.
Sound effect at the door.
That was good.
Yeah.
Scrooge and Marley, darling. Have I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley?
Marley's dead. In fact, he died 7 years ago this very night.
Oh. I've been practicing. I'm quite sorry to hear it, but I have no doubt his generosity is well represented by his surviving partner. At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, it's more than usually desirable that we should make some slight provision for the poor and needy who suffer greatly at the present time. Many thousands are in want of basic needs. Hundreds of thousands are in want of common comforts, sir.
Are there no prisons? Stick the buggers in there.
Oh, no, sir, you absolutely...
What's our blink sound effect?
There are still plenty.
And the workhouses for the poor.
I didn't finish my line, though.
Yeah, you did.
I didn't say there are still plenty of prisons.
You did. He did.
No, I didn't.
But you definitely did.
No, I did not.
You did.
Do you want to say it?
Do you want to do it again?
There are still plenty of prisons. There we go.
What's wrong with you? You're broken. And the workhouses for the poor, still in operation, I assume.
They are. Still, I wish I could say they were not.
The treadmill and the poor law are in full vigour then.
Yes. Very busy, sir.
Oh, well. I was afraid from what you had said that something had stopped them in your useful course. I'm glad to hear it.
Given that they scarcely furnish Christian cheer to the multitude, a few of us are trying to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink and some means of wealth. We choose this time because it is a time, above all others, when want is keenly felt and abundance rejoices. What shall I put you down for?
Bugger all.
You wish to be anonymous?
I wish to be left alone. I don't make merry myself at Christmas, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. I am taxed for the institutions I've mentioned, and they cost enough. Those who are badly off must go there.
But many can't go there, and many would rather die.
Good. Perhaps they'd better do it and increase the surplus population. Perhaps I shouldn't know anything about it.
Well, you can know it, sir.
It's not my business. I have too much of my own business to interfere with other people's. Mine occupies me constantly, and I'll thank you to leave me to it. Now, good afternoon, gentlemen.
Seeing clearly that it would be useless to pursue their point, the gentleman withdrew. Scrooge resumed his labours with an improved opinion of himself, and in a more facetious temper than was usual with him. The owner of one scant young nose, gnawed and mumbled by the hungry cold as bones are gnawed by dogs, stooped down at Scrooge's keyhole to regale him with a Christmas carol.
Oh, bless thee, Mary, gentlemen, may nothing you dismay.
Take that noisy trap away from my door, you little scroat. I didn't have to be bothered by that noise.
Scrooge seized the ruler with such energy of action that the singer fled in terror, leaving the keyhole to the fog an even more congenial frost.
You'll want all day tomorrow, I suppose.
If it's quite convenient, sir.
It's not convenient, and it's not fair. If I was to hold back £0.50 for it, you'd think you were being abused, no doubt. And yet you don't think me ill-used when I pay a day's wages for no work.
It's only once a year, sir.
A poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. But I suppose you must have it. Be here all the earlier next morning.
Oh, yes, sir, I shall. I certainly shall.
Oh, Scrooge, he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, he was. A squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, caventous old sinner, to be sure. Secret, self-contained, and solitary as an oyster. He carried his own low temperature with him everywhere he went. He iced his office in the dog days and didn't thaw it 1 degree at Christmas. Scrooge always took his melancholy dinner in the same melancholy tavern, and this night was no different. He read all the papers and beguiled the rest of the evening with his banker's book before he took himself home to bed. He lived in chambers which had once belonged to his deceased partner. They were a gloomy suite of rooms. It was old and dreary, for nobody lived in it but Scrooge, the other rooms being all let out as offices, the fog and frost so hung about the black old gateway of the house that it seemed as if the genius of the weather sat in mournful meditation on the threshold, just power through. Upon arriving in his chambers, Scrooge took off his cravat, put on his dressing gown, slippers, and his nightcap, and sat down before the fire to take his gruel, for he had a cold in his head. It was a very low fire indeed, nothing on such a bitter night. He was obliged to sit close to it and brood over it, before he could extract the least sensation of warmth from such a handful of fuel. Do you have it going on crackling?
Put that in post.
Yeah, I bet.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah. I think I did a better job.
That sounds like it's cold.
But yeah, this is a Attenborough documentary.
There are frogs in London.
Sure.
Is this in London?
Yeah.
There are frogs in London.
As he threw his head back in the chair, his glance happened to rest upon a bell, a disused bell that hung in the room and communicated with some purpose now forgotten with the chamber in the highest story of the building. Filled with great astonishment and with a strange incredible dread that as he looked, he saw this bell begin to swing. It swung so softly in the outset that it scarcely made a sound, but soon it rang out loudly, and so did every bell in the house. The bells ceased as they had begun together. They were succeeded by a clanking noise. Deep down below, as if some person was dragging a heavy chain over the casks in the wine merchant's cellar. Scrooge then remembered to have heard that ghosts in haunted houses were described as dragging chains.
Scrooge! Scrooge! All right, cheers.
No, Scrooge doesn't lie.
Humbug!
Oh.
I won't have any of this nonsense.
The figure came on through the heavy door and passed into the room before Scrooge's eyes. Everything of it was the same as it had always been. His pigtail, usual waistcoat, tights, and boots, the tassels on the latter bristling, his coat skirts, and the hair upon his head. The shady drew was clasped about his middle. It was long and marked about him like a tail, and it was made, for Scrooge observed it closely, of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, deeds, and heavy purses wrought in steel. His body was transparent, so that Scrooge, observing him, looked through his waistcoat, could see the 2 buttons on his coat behind. Though he looked the phantom through and through, and saw it standing before him, though he felt the chilling influence of its death-cold eyes, and marked the very texture of the folded kerchief bound about its head and chin, which wrapper he had not observed before, he was still incredulous, and fought against his senses.
How's this? What do you want from me?
Much.
Who are you?
Ask me who I was.
All right, you see-through bastard. Who were you then?
In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley.
Ha! I don't believe it.
Why do you doubt your senses?
Because a little thing affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach makes them cheats. You might be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a fragment of underdone potato. There's more of gravy than of grave about you, whatever you are.
Ha ha.
Ah!
Mercy! Dreadful apparition! Why do you trouble me with your lack of second bracket?
Man of the worldly mind, do you believe in me or not?
I do. I must. But why have you come to me?
It is required of every man that his spirit should walk abroad among his fellow men and travel far and wide. And if that spirit does not go forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death and witness what it cannot share, but might have shared and turned into happiness. Oh, woe is me!
You are feta cheese. Tell me why.
Oh, Christ. I wear the chain I forged in life. I made it link by link, yard by yard, and I wore it of my own free will. Would you know the weight and length of a strong coil you bear yourself? It was as long and heavy as this 7 Christmas Eves ago. You have laboured on since. It is a ponderous chain.
Jacob, old friend, please speak comfort to me.
I have none to give. I have little time. I cannot rest. I cannot linger anywhere. My spirit never walked beyond the narrow limits of our money-changing home. Yet such was I. Oh, such was I.
But you were always a good man of business, Jacob.
Business? Humankind was my business. Scrooge falls to his knees. Again. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business. Oh, why did I walk through crowds of fellow beings with my eyes turned down and never raise them to that blessed star which led the wise men to the poor abode? Were there no poor homes to which its light would have conducted me? Hear me! My time is nearly done.
I will, Jacob. But don't be hard on me.
I am here to warn you that you have yet a chance of escaping my fate. A chance I have procured for you, Ebenezer.
You were always a good friend. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, bye. You will be visited by 3 spirits.
Is that the chance you mentioned?
It is. Without their visits, you cannot hope to shun the path I tread. Expect the first tomorrow, when the bell tolls 1. Expect the second on the next night at the same hour. The third upon the next night. Look to see me no more, and for your sake, remember what was passed between us.
And so Scrooge lay in his bed and thought it over and could make nothing of it. The more he thought, the more perplexed he was, and the more he endeavoured not to think, the more he thought. Marley's spirit, in this production played by Jason Statham, bothered him exceedingly. Every time he resolved within himself that it was all a dream, his mind flew back again, like a strong spring relaxed to its first position, and presented the same problem to be worked all through.
Was it a dream, then? Ha! The hour itself, and nothing else.
Light flashed up in the room upon the instant, and the curtains of his bed were drawn aside, I tell you, by a hand. This hand. Not the curtains at his feet, nor the curtains at his back, but those to which his face was addressed. Scrooge, starting up into a half-recumbent attitude, found himself face to face with the unearthly visitor who drew them. She was a strange figure, like a child. Her legs and feet, most delicately formed, were like those upper members, bare. She wore a robe of the purest white and held a branch of fresh green holly in her hand. Her dress was trimmed with summer flowers, yet this was not the strangest thing about her. From the crown of her head there sprung a bright, clear jet of light. Sound of light, is it?
Yeah, sound like.
Like Bonnie Tyler's. By which all of this was visible against her bright, flowing hair and her hopeful expression.
Ah! What are you doing in my room?
Oh, she's doing her line first.
Oh, say your line.
Jesus, it's not a Barry show.
I saw you first.
Scrooge.
Are you the spirit whose coming I was told about?
I am.
Who and what nationality are you?
I wish I knew. I am the spirit of Christmas past.
Long past?
No, your past.
What brings you here?
Your welfare report.
I think a night of unbroken rest would be more conducive to my own welfare.
Your reformation, then. Take heed. Rise and walk with me.
The grasp, though of Lorraine Kelly's hand, was not to be resisted. He rose, but finding that the spirit made towards the window, clasped his robe in supplication. They passed through the wall and stood upon an open country road with fields on either hand. The city had entirely vanished. Not a vestige of it was to be seen. The darkness and the mist had vanished with it, for it was a clear, cold winter day with snow upon the ground.
Good heavens. My parents performed naughty in this place. I was a boy here.
Do you, I'm sorry, I can't.
Make your own way.
I'm fucking out.
I'm out.
I'm out. Do you, remember the whale? Ed?
Sounds like you're flirting.
Remember it. I could walk it blindfolded.
Strange that you've forgotten it. But you've forgotten it for so many years.
Some shaggy ponies now were seen trotting towards them, with boys and frogs upon their backs, who called to other boys in country digs and carts, driven by farmers. All these frogs were in great spirits, and shouted to each other until the broad fields were so full of merry music that the crisp air laughed to hear it.
Why, that's David Masterson and Robert Estes. Hello.
It looks like they're doing the naughty. These are merely shadows of the things that have been. They are not real of us.
Despite the spirit's remark, Scrooge's cold eyes glistened and his heart leapt all the same. He became filled with gladness when he heard them give each other Merry Christmas before they parted at the crossroads for their several homes.
Give you a Merry Christmas.
Is that a promise?
Get a room. The school is not quite deserted. I saw it from a child. Fuck off, James. Neglected by his friends. Is left them still.
Poor boy. My mother died giving birth to my sister. My father grew morose and seemed to begrudge us, both, ever after. I wish, but it's too late now.
What is it?
Nothing. There was a boy singing a Christmas carol at my door last night. I should like to have given him something.
Come on.
Come on now, it's like carry on Christmas.
That's all.
Scrooge's former self began to grow in front of his older eyes. The room became a little darker and more dirty. The panels shrunk, the windows cracked. Fragments of plaster made a strange sound and fell out of the ceiling, and the naked lads were shown instead. And there the boy, older now, was alone again, when all the other boys had gone home for the jolly holidays. He was not reading now, but walking up and down despairingly. Scrooge looked at the ghost, and with a mournful shaking of his head, glanced anxiously toward the door. It opened, and a little girl, much younger than the boy, came darting in, and putting her arms around his neck, and often kissing him, addressed him as her brother.
Your sister was a frail creature, an offspring ill, but she had a large heart.
So she had. You're right about that, Spirit. I'll not contradict it, God forbid.
She died a young woman, but she did have a child, as I recall.
Yes, a son. My nephew. His name is That's the hardest word I've encountered yet. His name in this play is Frog. His name is Fred Hollowell.
Your nephew, Ebenezer. The only family you have left.
Yes, that is true.
You went to work for a wonderful man, Mr. Fezziwig, who keeps a warehouse. Come along, Ebenezer. It's time to see another Christmas.
They went in, at sight of an old gentleman in a Welsh wig. Do you have noodles in your bag there?
What is a Welsh rig?
What's a Welsh wig?
Hi, Mike, show us. Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Oh,
Temporary. Just go.
Speaking version.
No, Fezziwig doesn't speak, but this is just a...
Fezziwig doesn't speak.
What? Waka waka! They went in at sight of an old gentleman in a Welsh wig, sitting behind such a high desk that if he had been 2 inches taller, he must have knocked his head against the ceiling.
Do you know this place?
No, this is where I was apprenticed. Look, it's old Fezziwig, bless his heart. Fezziwig alive again. And there's Dick Wilkins. We're the best of friends. Fezziwig said, "No more work tonight, my boys. It's Christmas Eve. Life is too short for all work and no play." He said, "I say it's time for a party. Dick and Ebenezer, move that table for dancing." And we all had a party.
It's such a small thing to make these silly folks look so... What? Why are you laughing at me?
I thought this was a silly thing.
To make these silly folks look so full with gratitude.
A small thing.
Is it not? After all, what did he do, this Fezziwig? Spent a few pounds on a party? Does he deserve such praise as this?
It isn't that spirit. Why, Mr. Fezziwig has the power to make us happy or unhappy. He can make our work pleasant or miserable, just in the way he looks at us and the way he addresses us. 1,000 such things add up, you know, until the happiness he gives us is as great as if it cost a fortune and...
What is that?
nothing.
Something, I think.
No. It's just that I would like to be able to say a word or two to my clerk, Bob Cratchit, just now. That's all.
Come, Ebenezer. My time grows short.
This was not addressed to Scrooge, or to anyone whom he could see, but it produced an immediate effect, for again Scrooge saw himself. He was a little older now, and a man in the prime of life. His face had not the harsh and rigid lines of later years. It had begun to wear the signs of
tough playground.
care and avarice. There was an eager, greedy, restless motion in the eye, which showed the passion that had taken root, and where the shadow of the growing tree would fall. The younger was not alone, but sat by the side of a fair young girl in a mourning dress, in whose eyes there were tears, which sparkled in the light that shone out of the ghost of Christmas past.
You fear the world too much, Ebenezer. All your other hopes have merged into the one hope of eluding the disdain of others. I have seen your nobler virtues fall away one by one, until nothing is left but your one master passion, the pursuit of profit. It consumes you.
What then? Even if I have grown wiser and more astute, I haven't changed my feelings towards you.
Oh, Ebenezer, our promise to one another is an old one. We made it when we were young and poor, and happy to remain so until we could improve our fortunes together by patience and hard work. But you changed. You are not the same man. Tell me, Ebenezer, if all of this had not happened, would you seek me out and try to win me now, a poor, dowerless girl with nothing to bring to a marriage? Just as I thought. You may feel sad now, Ebenezer, but I've no doubt that you will dismiss the thought of me very soon, as if you are glad to have awakened from a bad dream. May you be happy in the life you have chosen.
The elder Scrooge watched her part as she did those many years ago, but this time through a fresh film of tears that only time had held back.
Spirit, show me no more. Conduct me home. Why do you enjoy torturing me?
There is one more shadow you must see.
I don't wish to see it. Show me no more.
But the relentless ghost took him in both. Go on. Learn genders, right? and forced him to observe what happened next. They were in another scene, a place, a room, not very large or handsome, but full of comfort. Near to the winter fire sat a beautiful young girl, so like that lass that Scrooge believed it was the same, until he saw her, now a comely matron, sitting opposite her daughter. There were more children there, not 40, but every child conducting itself like 40. The consequences were uproarious beyond belief, but no one seemed to care. On the contrary, the mother and daughter laughed heartily and enjoyed it very much. The joy and gratitude and ecstasy. They are all indescribable alike. It is enough that by degrees the children and their emotions got out of the parlor and by one stair at a time up to the top of the house, where they went to bed and so subsided. And now Scrooge looked on more attentively than ever as Belle sat down with her husband and daughter. When Scrooge thought that such creature, quite as graceful and as full of promise, might have called him father, his sight grew very dim indeed.
I saw an old friend of yours this afternoon.
Oh? Who was it?
Take a guess.
Why? Surely you don't mean old Ebenezer Scrooge?
The very same. I passed his office window. His partner, Jacob Marley, lies upon the point of death, I hear. And there he sat, old Scrooge, all alone, quite alone in the vault, I do believe.
Spirit, remove me from this place.
I told you, these are the shadows of things that have been. That they are what they are. Do not blame me.
Please, I beg you, take me away from here. I can bear no more. No more!
Scrooge saw in the ghost face fragments of all the faces it had shown him. He observed its light was burning high and bright, and was aware of its influence upon him. He seized an extinguisher cap and by a sudden action pressed it down upon its head. After this mighty struggle, Scrooge was conscious of being exhausted and overcome by an irresistible drowsiness, and further, of being in his own bedroom once again. He barely had time to reel to bed before he sank into a heavy sleep. Awaking in the middle of a prodigiously tough snore, and sitting up in bed to get his thoughts together, Scrooge had no occasion to be told that the bell... Well, you're going to enjoy your next one. The bell was again upon the stroke of 1. Well, that was lovely.
Nice.
You can count.
From the adjoining room, a ghostly light seemed to shine. The moment Scrooge's hand was on the lock, a strange voice called him by his name.
Scrooge! Ebenezer Scrooge.
It was in his own room. There was no doubt about that, but it had undergone a surprising transformation. The walls and ceiling were sung.
It's just his go-to sound effect, isn't it? That's changing and stuff.
And that's the sound of change. The walls and ceiling were so hung with living green that it looked like a perfect grove, from every part of which bright gleaming berries glistened, heaped up on the floor to form a kind of throne, where turkeys, geese, game, poultry, brawn, great joints of meat, suckling pigs is what that should say.
It's a sucking pig. Are you sucking pigs? What? Come on.
Suckling pigs, long wreaths of sausages, mince pies, plum puddings, barrels of oysters, red hot chestnuts, cherry-cheeked apples, juicy oranges, luscious pears, immense 12 cakes, and seething bowls.
Bowels. Yeah, I was going to say it sounds like a horrible time in the toilet. Seething bowls of punch that made the chamber dim with their delicious steam. In an easy state upon this couch, there sat a jolly giant, glorious to see. Sound of glory? Bon Jovi.
Glory old bell.
Aye. He bore a glowing torch, in shape not unlike Plenty's horn, and held it up, high up, so there you go, you can use your glass if you like, so shed its light on Scrooge as he came peeping round the door.
Come here and know me better, man. I am the spirit of Christmas present. You have never seen the likes of me before, eh? Ha ha, ha ha.
No, I've never seen a big bastard on top of a mound of meat. You're right.
You haven't lived, my friend. You've never walked forth with any of my older brothers born in these later years?
No, I don't think I have. Have you had many brothers, Spirit?
Ha ha ha! More than 1,800. Ha ha.
Oh, busy family.
They'll go and be naughty.
A tremendous family to provide for.
Take hold of my robe, Ebenezer Scrooge.
You what?
My robe, you heard.
All right, Treacle.
See if you like.
Where are you taking me?
Oh, you'll see.
The moon, food, fire, the ruddy glow, and even the hour of night vanished instantly as they stood in the city streets on Christmas morning. Through the ghost's own kind, generous, hearty nature and his sympathy with all poor men, he led Scrooge straight to his clerks. You got a nice door sound there, maybe? Yeah, that'll do.
Sure.
Every time someone walks through a door, Marley dies.
Sound effect.
The ghost could accommodate himself to any place with ease, and stood beneath the low roof as comfortably and gracefully as he would a lofty hall. Up rose Mrs. Cratchit, dressed poorly in a twice-turned gown, but brave in ribbons as she laid the cloth with her children. Punctuated with a burden.
What has ever got your precious father then?
An exit of the Austrian.
That's to be able to say. And your brother, Tiny Tim.
Can you confirm there was a question mark?
Tiny Tim.
In came little Bob.
So, do I have to be Australian as Tiny Tim? Oh,
You do what you want, adoption exists. In came little Bob, with at least 3 feet of comforter, exclusive of the fringe, hanging down before him, and his threadbare clothes darned up and brushed to look seasonable, and Tiny Tim upon his shoulder. Alas for Tiny Tim, he bore a little crutch, and had his limbs supported by an iron frame.
And did little Tim behave himself in church?
As good as gold and better. Somehow, he gets thoughtful sitting by himself so much, and thinks the strangest things you'd ever heard. He told me, coming home, that he hoped the people saw him in the church, because he was a cripple, and it might be pleasant for them to remember, on Christmas Day, who made lame beggars walk and blind men see. But he's growing stronger every day. I just know it.
Belinda, help me with the goose.
Just wait.
Why, such a goose, Father. Such as we've never had before.
Such a goose. Just smell the sage and onion.
Mother outdid herself this year. We got it for a good price and all, Father. It wasn't expensive. Stolen.
A Merry Christmas to us all, my dears. God bless us.
God bless us.
No, yeah. Get it. This is everyone.
What kind of rat-a-tat country is this? Oh, yeah. Oh, TV. God bless you.
Oh, yeah.
Go on then.
I did it.
Did you?
No, yeah, God blesses everyone. I didn't expect to do it that way, but
God bless us. Oh, yeah.
no, yeah. Mr. Scrooge.
Tell me, Spirit, when did they start letting Australians in? Will the little Australian boy live?
Not bloody likely. I see a vacant seat at this table and a crutch without an owner, carefully preserved. If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die.
No, that cannot be. Say he will be spared.
If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, none other of my race will find him here. But what difference does it make? If he is likely to die, then let him die. and decrease the surplus population.
You use the words against me.
Yes, so that in the future, perhaps you will hold your tongue until you have discovered what the surplus population is and where it is. Who are you to decide who shall live and who shall die? It may be that in sight of heaven, you are more worthless and less fit to live than millions like this poor man's child.
In a rare moment of familial silence, the child's father stood and raised a glass. Does it help you out between characters?
Oh, thanks, darling. And now, dear ones, a toast. I give you Mr. Scrooge, the founder of our feast.
Cheers.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, yeah, everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Can I get an oh yeah for time 2?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, time 2. There we go.
You were so good at church today.
Humph.
Humph.
Oh yeah, the founder of our feast and food. I wish I had him here. I'd give him a piece of my mind to feast upon and hope he'd have a good appetite for it, the dirty bugger.
My dear, the children, Christmas Day.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, nah. Yeah, nah.
I'll drink his health. Ooh. For your sake in the days, not for his. Long life to him, oh yeah. And very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. He'll be very merry and very happy, I have no doubt.
To Mr. Scrooge.
To Mr. Scrooge.
Mr. Scrooge.
Mr. Scrooge.
Oh yeah.
No, yeah. No, yeah.
No, yeah.
No, yeah.
The spirit sprinkled incense on their dinners from his torch. And it was a very uncommon... Wait.
Is this incense?
This is the sound of incense.
It's a sign of fuckery.
It was a very uncommon kind of torch, for he only shed a few drops of water on them, and their good humour was restored directly.
Is there a peculiar flavour in what you sprinkle from your torch?
Oh, that sounds awful.
That's really bad.
There is, indeed, my own.
Would it apply to any kind of dinner on this day?
To any kindly given, to a poor one most,
Why to a poor one most?
because it needs it most.
No, yeah. I think it's time for a song.
No, yeah. What type of song here?
A Christmas Carol.
That's the end of Act 1, believe it or not.
Jesus wept.
We'll come back,
Is it
for the rest of Christmas
break?
Drink break. I think we need it after that sort of
Throws it away.
neighbours at the end there.